Oh man, you said you're sore? What are you
I'm
sore from?
I'm extremely sore. I've been working out extremely hard to try to get into comeback season. I decided when I turned 45, I wanted to be in the best shape of my life, and I have been absolutely getting crushed using 18 Alpha Fitness program. Go over to 18 Alpha Fitness, 18afitness.com, and check out Coach Edge. Kevin is an awesome dude. He's an 18 Alpha that, for those of you that don't know, that is an Army Special Forces officer. So Kev was an 18 Alpha Special Forces Green Beret, and then in his second life, he really took an interest in fitness and helping people achieve making assessment selections and getting them physically prepared. So that's been his entire life after this. That led him to start 18 Alpha Fitness. He's got programs for everybody. So obviously, I am not preparing to go into a special operations pipeline. That part of my life is over. But you know what? I'd like to be a little bit stronger. I'd like to be a little bit better at jujitsu. I'd like to have a little bit more of an engine. And Kevin helps with all that stuff. So I went through his entire program. He designed a program for me. When you sign up with Kevin, he actually asks you, like, how much time do you have? Do you have this equipment? Do you have this ability? And he will tailor a program specifically for you. The app is super easy to use. He engages with you on it all the time. I would put in a workout, or I would put something in to, and he would get so far down in the weeds. I would accidentally put in something, like I would hit an extra number. He'd be like, you did 200 of these. And I'd be like, well, no, I only did 20. And he's like, oh, well, you put 200 on the app. That's how much he's going to guide you through these programs. He knows everything that's going on. So head over to 18alphafitness.com. You can find him on Instagram. You can find him on Facebook. You can find them over at 18alphafitness.com. Use our code ONEREADY, the number one, and then the word ready, all one word. So ONEREADY. Use it to get a sweet discount, more so to tell him that we sent you there, because we're good people. We'd like to think so. He's good people. And then when good people meet good people, there you go. So go over to 18alphafitness.com. Use our code ONEREADY at checkout. Get with Kev. If you just want to look better as a dad bod dude, old guy, he's got a program for you. Jiu-Jitsu athletes, program for you. Every single special operations pipeline, he's got a program for you. So go check it out. 18 Alpha Fitness.
Dad bods unite.
Dad bods. We ain't doing that around here.
No, we're not doing that.
No,
I'm
sir.
working on that.
No, sir.
I mean, Christmas is coming around, so that, if you need a program for Christmas, like 18 Alpha Fitness, it's a good Christmas gift. Another good Christmas gift is going to onesready.com, getting yourself a flag, a piece of merch. We're going to have hoodies. We've got some new stuff. By the time this drops, the new stuff should already be up on the website. Dresden flag, Aaron Love Hate Club, limited run on that. So get yourself one of those shirts.
Fly off the shelves, man. The Aaron Love hate is strong. So we just decided to monetize that hate. So that's basically what happened.
But I mean, there's other things there. I think we're going to launch a new style of hoodie. So we'll still have the Fit Tech kind of hoodie, but we're going to have other hoodies and other shirts and that kind of stuff. And we got some new slaps. And while you're there, if you do want to pick up some Attack Elite gear, mask, snorkel, fins, booties, ropes, rucksack, smartwatch, all those kind of stuff, you can get it there too. And the discount's already built in. No promo code needed. All right. So our guest coming up is Jason Angell. He is the author of Running Towards Gunfire, Courage and Brotherhood in Ramadi. He's a prior Marine. Great story. Did some real shit downrange. So it was a pleasure talking to him. G Waters. So Dad Bods Unite, but also G Waters Unite. So enjoy the conversation. We appreciate you having us. Chose that life.
Can't complain about something you chose to do. I chose to hurt myself. Like you, the listeners, welcome back to the Ones Ready podcast. I stole the intro from Jared today. It's Jared. It's myself. It's Jason. We're going to talk about all things CAS and cool stuff. Unfortunately, I do have a disclaimer. Guys, we got a cat person on the podcast. He's an officer. He said he was a dog person. He said he's a dog person and an officer. I said I didn't believe him. He's lying about one. Stay tuned. Listen to the end to make sure that we find out which one. Jason, what's up, brother? Thanks for coming on.
Hey, guys. Thanks for having me on the podcast. I really appreciate it, man. I started watching y'all, not too long ago, but a lot of the CAS, CCTs, that stuff, I like watching when y'all talk about that. Y'all do a lot of the pipeline stuff, and that's great. But I know a lot really caught my attention was y'all's attention to the close air support. So
yeah, and it's 100% why we're here. Yeah. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, Jason? What got you into the military?
Yeah. Well, in 1993, I out of high school, like everybody else, I didn't want 4 more years of C's and D's, so I enlisted in the Marine Corps and went infantry, and did my time enlisted in the early 90s, Camp Pendleton. Back then, no deployments. There was Somalia, maybe something in Africa for 10 minutes. That's it. So it was just a lot of training. And after I got out, I broke my leg in a vehicle accident. I got out early and went to college. After college, went back in as an officer, and then not shortly after that, 9/11 happened. That's when all of us G-Waters were sent overseas continuously.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, hell yeah, G-Watt.
that's it, man.
Damn right, brother.
Yeah. You know what's funny? It took us 2 seconds to figure it out. You were prior enlisted, so you were a dog person. You just decided to cross over for the benefits.
I moved on over to cats, I guess, right?
And you're not from old money, so.
And you're not from old money. No,
I wish. Shit, I wish.
Yeah,
old money's the best money.
Generational wealth.
I know.
Yeah. So what was it like? We get that question a lot, right? So people, oh, did I miss the war? Whatever else. So you got in and you had an entire enlistment, and then decided to come back in kind of in a different way. What was your mindset? It had to change, right? Because obviously, September 11th, 2001 happened, and that everything was off to the races. But in that mid ground there, what was keeping you motivated to come back into service?
I wasn't ready. So like I said, I got out. I was in a vehicle accident, broke my leg, and I wasn't ready. Right, I wanted to keep going, and back '90s there was nothing going on, but I still wanted to serve. I still had that warrior man mindset. I wanted to go back in, and I don't want to sit behind a desk like they offered. It's like, look, you can get out of infantry and go sit behind a desk. I don't want to do that at all. I wanted to go. If I was going to be Marine, I was going to do the whole thing, and so I got out, and it was just pushed me. I wanted to serve my country, And then 9/11 happened. It changed, but now I was excited because real deployments were coming up, right? Of course, you're ignorant of really what combat is when you've never been there, but you wanted to go. And so everybody thought that, this was going to be a Desert Storm type thing and, a few days of actual ground combat, but obviously that wasn't the case 2 decades later, right? Yeah. Everybody got a piece of the pie that wanted it mostly. So.
Right. Yeah. Everybody got everything that they wanted and a whole lot of stuff that they didn't out of GWAT. So that was, it was one of those, caveat emptor, those buyer beware sort of scenarios.
That's exactly right.
This sounds like a fun thing. And for everybody out there, it is fun. Combat is fun. We've said it a million times. The actual execution of walking into a room where you have to get into a gunfight with somebody that wants to kill you, winning and going home. That is probably one of the most intense, and it can be fun things in the world. It's also terrifying and destructive. But
100% agree.
Yeah. So you got back in. You decided that it was off to the races. You're going to go get some real deployments. What MOS did you come back in as?
As an officer, as in Marine Corps at least, officers, you don't pick your MOS. You kind of you compete for them, right? Unless you're a pilot, right? If you're a pilot or a lawyer, you go that legal route or you go that air route. The rest of us, you compete for, ground combat or supply or whatever it is you want to do, and you compete for that. And I wanted infantry again or a combat MOS. I didn't get infantry right off, but I got artillery officer, which I was pretty happy to get. Ultimately, I wanted infantry, but that's what Marine Corps sent us around. But I got the artillery, and then, before you know it, I was in Fort Sill where our Army teaches artillery. I was in Marine Corps, but Fort Sill, that's what artillery is.
Lawton, Oklahoma. All right.
Gorgeous.
Man, I drove through as a civilian a few years back, man. I do not want to go back there again. That place was depressing as shit. But, get on. You got to do what you got to do, so 9/11 happened, and I was in Fort Sill, and then got back, a year later. I found out where I was going. I went to the 1st Marine Division and showed up to artillery battalion. They're like, hey, we're sending an artillery battery with an infantry battalion over to Tajikistan, which, for those who don't know, that's on the northern border of Afghanistan. And the only thing I knew about it at the time was that movie Spies Like Us. So in the 80s, there was a movie Spies Like Us with Dan Aykroyd and
great movie
Chevy Chase, and they go into the Soviet Union. And back then, they cross into the Soviet Union from Afghanistan and get caught by the Soviet police on the road to Dushanbe. Dushanbe is the capital of Tajikistan. That's all I knew about Tajikistan, right? That's American public education right there in a whole. But ended up not going. You know how those things are. Hurry up and wait, get canked, the whole thing. Didn't go. A year later, we were standing in Kuwait, ready to cross into the border into Iraq. So things didn't happen as fast, but they happened quick. And I'll be honest with you, I was glad I got a year of good training back in the States before I deployed.
Yeah. So at what point did you end up in the Anglicos then, or was that Anglico?
No, that wasn't Anglico at all. Okay. So Anglico is, those who don't know, Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company, right? These are small teams that Marine Corps developed in early 50s because back then the Army still did it in amphibious landings, right? So they decided that we couldn't control air or naval gunfire when they landed. So Navy, Marine Corps, you need to provide us teams that can do that. So that's what they have. They developed these teams that do that. Before you know it, they didn't just stay on the beaches. The Army was bringing them inland into Korea, Chosin Reservoir, the whole deal, and that's what kind of blew up from there. So Anglico was my second deployment to 2005 is when I went back with Anglico. With Anglico, got trained up, went back over there to the city of Ramadi in Iraq. In 2005, 2006 was not a fun place. It was very dangerous. And but you know, so I figured y'all talk about it too. Aaron, I think you were over there, right, doing some soft things, but it was Ramadi was. This was after the push into Fallujah, right? So Fallujah happened. The final push of Fallujah happened in November of 2004. Everybody who didn't die left there, and for the most part, went to Ramadi, insurgent-wise, and then that's when the attacks really started building up. There's Marine. Of course, there was never enough bodies there, right, until the surge happened. So everybody's just trying to keep their head above water.
Well, that was the kind of incredible thing is that SOF got a lot of recognition during that time frame, right? But when you actually think about the things that happened in Fallujah, Ramadi, that was a heavy conventional. I mean, yes, SOF was on the ground for sure, right? But you're talking about your 18-year-old grunts, 18-year-old infantrymen, just door to door, clearing 100 houses a day.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was real CQB that they were doing during that time frame. And I mean, these are guys just out of high school that are just
Marine Corps maybe 4 months. So they went boot camp, maybe 6 months, right? Boot camp, SOI, School of Infantry. Boom, you show up right before you deploy. And I knew plenty of guys like that. I knew officers as well. They got pulled from schools. Hey, we're heading over, man. Right. So it was different, man.
And there's an argument that could be made that, hey, school is more important. Let's get you a foundational baseline. But at the same time, when things were going off, that, whether you agree that we were there or not, that doesn't matter. It's the guys were there and they were doing work. And, sure, you can make the argument that is it better to stay in school, get that foundational knowledge and be trained well, or do you get better training when you're actually in combat and the stakes are a lot higher? I mean, you could make an argument for both, right? But man, everybody, at least everybody that I've talked to, so I can't speak, but the learning curve from when you deploy, like you think you kind of know what you're doing, like when you're in garrison, your home station, your training and everything like that. But then you hit that deployment and it just skyrockets.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, it just opens your eyes and it's mind blowing. It's got to be the same for even the 18-year-olds.
Oh, even more of them, because they're not really listening to really what's the big picture, right? I know, because as a former 03 infantryman and a junior man in the infantry is they're not telling you a lot of the big picture stuff. Hey, what do you get? You might get from your squad leader, maybe your platoon commander or fire team leader, like, hey, we're moving in. We need to start clearing these buildings north to south. This is what you do. That's it. You're not seeing the big picture. You kind of might have got it during the brief. That's it. You're not paying attention. You're focusing on, hey, you're first man, you're number one man going in that door, and that's, and for those young guys, man, that's, you got to give them all the support. So the Marine Corps, it's in different areas, is our whole existence supports that man on the ground that's going into the door, that's kicking in the door, right? So that's how everything revolves around. So when you start going into JTACs for the Marine Corps, Anglico, a little bit different because we don't really support Marine Corps. We support adjacent units or soft units or do independent ops, but everything in the Marine Corps revolves around that man who's kicking in the door and going through that room. And those guys were, doing the work day in and day out. And then even Ramadi, and this is what I've said before, when I went, it was really heavy National Guard. So the Pennsylvania National Guard was in Ramadi during that time. It was the 2nd, the 28th Brigade combat team, led by Colonel Gronsky. And these guys, day in and day out, there wasn't enough bodies, right? So they're doing vehicle patrols, maybe some foot patrols, ECPs, guard duty, rotate back at ground, QRF, consistently. And, you go in there as a Marine or maybe SOF or something like that, and you're like, they're TTPs and, they don't look some of the ways you do, but it doesn't matter because they're on the ground day in and day out. And you got to help them out. You be in there, going in and say, hey, you need to do this better. That's not going to help anybody. Hey, I can
No.
help you out. Let's get this done, brother. You're on the street day in and day out, getting blown up by IEDs, getting shot at. That's it. That's what matters. Those guys were on the ground, regardless of what was on their shoulder or patch or whatever it is, and they were doing the real work, man. And it was an honor working next to those guys and women, day in and day out.
Yeah.
It wasn't easy.
And then that's the thing is that I think that's why folks in our community are not really receptive to the whole "that's not my job" thing, because at that point, and for years after that, we were pulling in people from every MOS, every Air Force specialty code, every job. It didn't matter if you were an armor or you were okay, maybe not a cook, but if you were, something that's not your job. It's like, dude, I don't care. I need you to get behind the wheel of the Striker or the Humvee or the Pander, or like, I need you to be able to drive. I need you to be like, hold a rifle, point it that way. I got it. Even if you just sling a couple, rounds down there, at least it'll get everybody's eyes going that way. It's another set of eyes. It's another rifle.
Exactly.
Like, let's do it.
Everything. Yeah. And you're there for the whole effort. And as an attachment, one particular area during that deployment, 05 to 06, I was in a city called Hit as well, right? I was there for about a month, and that's that's between Al Assad and Ramadi along the Euphrates River. And I was working with another National Guard. It was Army National Guard artillery battalion that was doing provisional infantry. So, but they were doing it. These guys were on patrols. They weren't, 11 Bravos or whatever the Army designation for infantry is. They were doing it, man. But one thing I did notice is that they kind of relied heavily on us. We came in, I got attached to my team. So an Anglico team consists of an officer, and that's not because we thought officers are great. It's because if you're working with allied forces, a lot of allied forces, especially the Middle East, don't want to deal with enlisted. They only want, it's beneath them, that nonsense, right? There's that nonsense. A lot of their officers are royalty, all that crap. So a big thing in the Marine Corps is like, we'll put an officer in these teams. So the issue isn't make them feel better. It's just mission accomplishment. Look, it makes you feel better. You're going to talk somebody with fucking bars on your shoulder. That's fair enough. We have people that are dying. Let's get accomplished. So it's a 4-man team, the officer and the 3 NCOs or Marine enlisted as well. And those are fire support Marines, scout observers, communicators, a lot of training with, weapon systems and patrols and the whole thing. And that's kind of what we did. But and over there, a lot of times you have to tell them, I'm not doing that. You can't. I wasn't one to say that's not my job. I was one mostly out there like, look, we can help you here. I can get in that truck and I can guard. I can put my machine gun down that avenue of approach while we're waiting. I'm also talking to birds overhead, right? Doing ISR. So, you want to help these units as much as you can, because that's what you're there for. Even if they have JTAC TACPs with them, because I did a lot of work and we're working with Air Force TACP teams, and fine. Hey, I want you to work rotor. I want you to work fixed wing while I'm working rotors, because a lot of TACPs don't know how to use Marine rotors as well, right? I know it's still the same JCAS, how I get it all, but this is the oddity. So I work Marine rotors while you take care of the Marine fixed wing, because as an TACP is a lot more standardized there. But so that was it. You got to work with those units, and especially in Ramadi, there wasn't enough bodies back then, and everybody had to do multiple jobs, and so it was interesting.
Yeah. So I'm the oldest of 3 brothers. The other 3 one of them's retired now, but the other 2 are in the Army. They all started in as Army, and then 2 of them went over to aviation. They're doing different stuff, and the third one is a cyber dude. But he was one of those guys. He was an active duty guy, but he was into crit. We're talking 2005, 2006, 2007. 2 of my brothers pulled like 18-month tours in the crit triangle. One of them was an 11 Bravo. The other one was an infantry guy doing exactly what you're talking about. He was just doing. I was talking to Kyle, about 2 or 3 months into his Iraq deployment. I was getting ready to go over to Iraq to the same area for deployment. I was like, hey, what are you doing, man? He's like, well, I'm doing like convoys and we're doing clearance ops. I was like, you're doing the fuck what? And he was just like, yeah, man. He's like, it's wild, but that's what it was. I want to take you back to that first deployment to Iraq, right? So you guys were getting ready to go to TJ. You guys didn't get the call to go in. You ended up getting ready to go into Iraq. When you got boots on the ground in Iraq the first time, you had finally gotten to where it is that you wanted to be. You always wanted to deploy, right? How was that first Iraq deployment for you?
It was surreal. It was the invasion, right? So completely different than the occupation later on. It was the invasion. So, and to be honest, we weren't even sure. We thought he did have gas,
right?
WMD. So we were scared of shit, right? Every few minutes they were launching a Scud. When we moved up to the border, right, to our attack positions and assembly positions, And then we started exchanging artillery fire, right? They started shooting mortars and scuds at us. We started shooting artillery at them and mortars back at them along the borders. As we're kind of waiting, we're building up. They know what's coming. We know what's coming. And with the 1st Marine Division was commanded by General James Mattis. And I don't know if you've ever heard of him or not, but in the Marine Corps, he's a pretty popular cat, right?
Yeah, so, the name does ring a bell. It's Chaos or something, right? James Mattis, never heard of her.
It's like Mad Dog. It's not Mad Dog. It's like Nice Kid,
Chaos
Nice Kitty or
6.
something like that.
Chaos 6.
Now, what I will say is that James Mattis is 100% a dog person. That dude, 100%.
100%, dude. That guy, he finally got married, man. Yeah, he got married recently. So that's what I saw. So he couldn't have a woman interfere with his Marine Corps career.
Oh, wow.
That's right. She wasn't issued to him. So
no, it wasn't. So that's it.
So you build up this wall of iron, and everybody, like, we know you're coming. We know we're coming. The whole thing, right? They
started burning some more infrastructure across the border. So General Mattis said, "Hey, we're not leaving in 8 hours. We're moving now, right before the sun went down." So we had that ATO, right? So your air task unit order was already planned. So we know who's going to start dropping these bombs. But that got pushed. Timeline got pushed up. So ATO was out the window. So all we had were just kind of on-call casts because I wasn't a forward air controller then or a JTAC. I was a FO. But our forward air controller, which was a Marine pilot, was with us, and they didn't have much cast when we first crossed because of that the ATO had changed. Right, we had some on-call stuff. Most we were just shooting artillery, and it was just to support. But once we crossed in that berm, I was with the 1st Battalion, 5th Marines, with the 1st Marine Division. We were, I think, the 1st Marine Battalion to cross into it. Right across, tanks start shooting at a couple of tanks, and they were still hot. I don't know if they were active, but somebody had been in there, so they do the thermals. You can see the tank's still warm, right? Cut across there, they put a couple of Sabo rounds, do the others, start moving, and each company had their own objective. And so the first night, it was just we're clearing gas, oil separation plants and some pumping stations, and the next morning, we must have been working for about 12 hours. Next morning, that's when we got attacked by some Iraqis and some SUVs just coming down the road, right? We were in a defensive position, cleared a pumping station, and they started shooting from the windows, man, and he shot one of our lieutenants, one of our platoon commanders, and right under the SAPI plate, and he died right there. His name was Shane Childers.
Damn.
And right there, we were 12 hours into it, and I want to say lucky shot. It was a shot underneath the SAPI plate, stomach, gut wound, you're bleeding out, so.
Yeah, we had a PJ got hit, same exact thing, just on the backside. Jason Cunningham caught it right underneath his plate on the backside. It was just one of those, and you can call it a lucky shot. Like it is what it is. Sometimes you just catch the one that you weren't meant to catch, and unfortunately, it cost you your life. So Shane Shoulders, that sucks.
It does.
Sucks. How did you guys recover from that? Taking a loss in any unit sucks.
It was all passed kind of on the radio, right? You heard something. Hey, we got a casualty down here. Start working up a 9 line to get him evac'd out. But then somebody came up the radio. Hey, these KAA, because they're asking what kind of evac is it? Is it routine? Is the whole deal?
Yeah,
is like negative? It's routine KAA.
And so man,
I knew then, and you just deal with it.
The feeling that I have inside of my chest right now, because I've heard that radio call where you're like, hey, what kind of evac is it? When you hear that call, like, hey, it's routine. Man, that fucking sucks.
You know it, man.
That is a tough one.
Yeah.
So as you get through that initial deployment, was it everything you thought it was going to be? Like no kidding, changed your entire life. You already had a life beforehand, and went back to college. It was a long journey to get back to the officer side of the house.
Yeah.
Was it everything that you wanted out of that first deployment?
Yeah. I mean, aside from wounded and KAs, but it was everything you did. You look, especially you engage, and there was stuff that mistakes happen. Like we engaged civilian vehicles that weren't stopping. They didn't know how to stop at the ECPs yet, right? And so, there's definitely stuff that gets you, but overall, it was an exciting. And as a young man, it was an exciting time in my life. That whole invasion was crazy, and we attacked. In September. It was April 10th, after the Western media was saying that Baghdad had already fallen to the Americans, that we were still fighting in northern Baghdad around the palace, and we had another KA then as well too, and so it was Gunnery Sergeant Jeffrey Bohr was our the gunnery sergeant for the company where I was with, and he got killed too, and just shot from that. Back then we had Humvees, we had softback Humvees back then. We didn't have armored Humvees, so he elected to go in with the amphibious assault vehicles, those big tracked Marine vehicles. Went into Baghdad, and he came with us as a kind of a, as a company gunnery sergeant. They focused on those soft skin vehicles, and he ended up getting killed.
Damn. So as you get back home, you get through your first Iraq deployment. When did you figure out that you guys were going to go back and go into Ramadi?
Well, I was with the division there, so I ended up about a year later. I got out, but in '04 I was in Okinawa, Japan, on a deployment, kind of a UDP, right? And I just got back from Iraq, and now we're back another deployment. This is kind of us floating around the Western Pacific just in case Korea gets spicy. I guess what it is, right? So, but during early '04. Fallujah, the whole Blackwater contractors got killed.
Man.
Fallujah's blowing up. IEDs are going off. Everybody's getting kidnapped. Everybody's getting heads chopped off. So, that's when it was really blowing up. We're like, what's going on? And the Marine Corps had left, but then they started bringing back Marines and putting more bodies in country because shit was blowing up crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and then you get ready to go. In between that time, when we were there had to be like some sort of preparation where you have the experience, and I bet you were working with a bunch of Marines that hadn't yet seen active combat. So what was it like getting the team ready to go? I mean, you were going into the worst possible scenario, and we can, there are very few, times in life where I'll hyperbolically say like this was absolutely hell on earth. But I'll tell you what, like 2003 to 2010 in Iraq, it's pretty much hell on earth. That's pretty much the worst time that you could be anywhere and do anything. So as you're getting ready with these young Marines, these 18-year-olds that have seen 4 months of boot camp, and now maybe they're floating over in the Indo-Pacific with you, but the word starts to come down, hey, the push is going to happen, we're going to go take Fallujah, and the Marines are going to be the tip of the spear on this one. How did you get people's minds right to get ready to prepare to go that scenario?
Well, I did go into Fallujah. I wasn't there.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I wasn't in Fallujah, so we watched all that happen, and so that's the time I left one unit, and then I got selected. I went to Anglico, first Anglico there in Camp Pendleton, on the West Coast, and they told me to go, AK, if you go, you got to do 2 more deployments, combat deployments, and there's going to be 5 months in between deployments, right? So I go back from deployment 05 to 06. 5 months later, I'm back in country. I was like, heck yeah. Back then, you're like, hell yeah, I want to go. Sign me up. Who does
stupid?
I know I just got back.
God, young men are so stupid.
My wife, and I just got married too, and my wife was like, but she was nothing but 100% supportive. So look, I show up to Anglico, and immediately the thing about that unit I loved is, man, we were doing great training. We were running ruck runs with our packs. Other units weren't really doing this, and just extreme stuff. And that's why I joined the Marine Corps. I mean, our morning PTs to hikes to our patrols to helo. I mean, everything was just everything I wanted to do. But the Marines showed up. I had one of my Marines was in the initial push into Fallujah, and his team leader got wounded. He was there working with a Navy SEAL somewhere around Fallujah. He got wounded by a mortar, but. So I'm preparing him, right? So he'd seen combat, but the other 2 were brand new. But one was a former enlisted guy with the Army's 82nd Airborne Division, was with us. He was my team chief. Great dude, Mike Anderson. And then my other guy, John Curidan, who was 17 or had just turned 18 because he joined up at 17. So, but these were young Marines that wanted to fight. They were curious and they wanted to get out there, but they wanted to slug it out. Of course, my vet, Chad Dyer, who was my communications chief, he quiet, professional, typical. You'd think about a combat veteran, but we brought it together, and they did great, man. There's a training we were provided was outstanding. You always want more training, but considering the time frame and everything, we're good to go. And the main thing there, they were really curious, what's it like? And I was like, look, the invasion is different than occupation.
Yeah.
I didn't know what a tick was or a PID until we got back into Iraq. They weren't even teaching that, right? So I get back in Iraq. We show up there to Ramadi, like, yeah, you got to announce it's a tick. I'm like, what's a tick? And like, yeah, troops in contact. Okay, then that sets off the whole deal, right?
Yeah.
But, you just prepare them. You get other guys in there, and you start doing what needs to get done, repetitive stuff. I thought that, immediate action drills and the whole deal was really helping them, and just get them to move, get them to go. And our unit was good about putting those young Marines in charge, so they can make mistakes but know what it's like, right? And make decisions, right? The Marine Corps is all about making decisions. And so it was a good preparation. But every day we're watching the news, Ramadi's IED killed this many people. This guy killed, this woman killed. It's surreal. And I know these Marines were married, and I know their wives were probably like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Because they weren't like us going, bring it on.
Yeah.
They're like, they're scared. And my wife too. My wife never really voiced that to me because she didn't want me to worry. But It was a preparation. It was something else.
Oh yeah. Well, like you hit on something, and I was actually had already planned to ask you this because I wanted to get your take on it, but you brought it up with the Marine Corps likes to have their young Marines and their folks kind of make mistakes to learn because that's how you learn.
Exactly right.
And so, real quick, when did you get out?
I got out in 2008.
Okay, so 2008. I'm sure you've written a book, and we're going to get to that. But I'm sure you've kind of kept up with kind of how things are now.
Oh yeah,
knowing what it was when you came in and until you got out in '08 to kind of what it is now. We have gotten very we have not pushed control and command down to lower levels, right? Because of the I would say infiltration or the amount of ISR platforms that are overhead, like there's always somebody watching, which means
second guessing,
and then going, at the top, not at the very top, but at certain echelons going up, they're watching.
Yeah.
And they don't have the full picture. And sometimes it's just they glance and they see something like, what's going on there? And so they don't have the full picture, but they're armchair quarterbacking from back then. Whereas instead of empowering and enabling our commanders and our senior enlisted and our enlisted on the ground, I'm interested in your thoughts on that, considering that you were in Ramadi and doing all this, and you're making snap decisions that are going to impact people's lives and kind of the way that American forces are viewed on the battlefield. I'm just interested in your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Now, for the Marine Corps at least, and this could be for other services as well, but on the Marine Corps, it's they want the young Marines to take charge when they have to, and so they push that on them, right? Make a decision, right? It's always like officer, right? But it's back then, when you're enlisted, like make a decision, Marine. Everybody's dead, but you have these 3 private first class with you. What do you do now, right? Make a decision. Sitting there, scared isn't going to make it. So they push this into infantry training, into School of Infantry, just unit training as well, and they pushed making decisions. Now, overseas in combat, I noticed that it was a gradual phase. During the invasion, nobody was looking at shit. We had some ISR. You could use a lightning targeting pod to look at to see some imagery, but most of it was old school. Hey, 9-line. Not that we had IPs, nothing but 9-line out there hitting it, right? But slowly, as you started getting in, then you started getting lawyers into the COC. One thing I noted, once they started putting legal representatives in the COC or the TOC, whatever it's called, that's when problems started occurring. And because that lawyers don't belong, in my view, they don't belong in the COCs. The commander makes a decision, right or wrong, he makes it. He doesn't look at his legal representative. And that's just but I know that was pushed on them, right? We need our legal in there to cover our own asses. And I thought it was bullshit. I thought it was wrong. It was ridiculous. But by the time I got out, my last deployment, they were just starting to get into there, right? So it wasn't like it was from what I heard guys in Afghanistan and 2011 where lawyers are everywhere and I get the whole you want to be legal and do the right thing, but I don't think they have any use in the COC and during active situations. Well, I know they ask what's the difference to CDE because the difference from this bomb, I don't know how many times I saw them deny, counter battery fire because it was too close to a building that was been abandoned for 2 years. I mean,
well, the worst part about it is when you do have guys, in a tick, and you have the lawyers or the commanders on the other end saying, "Hey, well, per the ROE, have you tried to break contact?" You're like, "Dude, I'm trying to stay alive right now.
I'm not trying to have a discussion on this radio with you, you fucking dork."
Yeah,
exactly.
What are you even talking to me about?
Like,
the fact that they
have you done an escalation of force yet? It's like,
dude,
he was going 60 miles an hour, 20 feet away. No, but sorry, Aaron, go ahead, man.
Oh no, you're good, man. Thank goodness, finally somebody interrupted me on the podcast. The comments are going to go off. They try to civilize savagery, and it's just the dumbest thing when you start injecting these things. Like, we're here. Like, I'm sorry to everybody that's out there that thinks like, we're modern day knights that are, we're there to kill people, kill everybody. The reason why we lost in GWAT, the reason why we lost in Afghanistan, the reason why we had to retreat out of Afghanistan is because the American public doesn't possess the constitution to let the military go as far as it needs to, as violently as it needs to. Iraq and Afghanistan were really 1 year problems each, because we go in, we kill literally everybody for everything, and then we leave and we come back home and we're like, hey, don't make us come back and kill you again. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be 20 years of 3-theater protracted counterinsurgency operations that no civilization has ever won. So when you start seeing the lawyers get in there and you start having these conversations, I distinctly remember, being in the Helmand province in like 2011, 2012. And there was this big open desert to this. I mean, it's a big open desert down there anyway, but big open desert. And the poor gate guards who were actually Marines out at Leatherneck Shore.
Leatherneck.
Yeah. So those dudes were pulling security, and they would have to go through this ridiculous thing where they'd be like, first they would like shine their mirror at somebody on a moped that's like screaming towards the gate, and then they'd have to shoot a pen flare, and then they were allowed to like rip off warning shots at one point. Where I'm like, what do we do? How about you just shoot the guy that's harassing the war? And then nobody else would be like, well, we don't know if he's bad. He's obviously looking at you to see what you're going to do, so that they can then
testing your TTPs.
Yep.
Well, and then Bastion had a base attack. The deployment, the folks that I turned over actually responded to that base attack, and they got out there.
Is that when they killed that Harrier squadron's CO?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was crazy. But so all that to say, man, I totally get it. When you start injecting, when you start having these conversations, and when you start having people second guess, I've been on missions having command ping me like, bro, we took the Ardennes forest off of a telegraph that was 2 lines long. Take the Ardennes. Stop. Let me know when you're done. Stop. That's what we did. Like, to the fact that, in 2024, I've got essentially some dork sitting in air conditioning a mile away from me on his cell phone. Like, wow, Aaron, you didn't give me phase line 17 update. Yeah, shut up. I'm fucking busy, man. Yeah.
Oh, man, I got... and if you don't mind me jumping, there's a story I want to let you know about that same shit. Is so I'm in HIT, and I was actually out with a special forces team, but they need another body for patrol. So back then you had to have 3 vehicles for vehicle patrol. So they came and grabbed, hey, do you want to come with us? We got to do something. I was like, yeah. So we went with them in our gun truck. We're doing security across the street. Convoy passes. There was an IED explosion, RPG, small arms fire, and then those guys, the insurgents, displaced. So I called in. I get some aircraft pushed me. I got some Cobras, and I see when the insurgents would be doing that exact same thing. They'd attack and then they go across the river. All right, and they take canoes across the river. So they hadn't done that yet, but we found their canoes. So I had the fucking Cobras blow up the canoes. Right. Fair enough, right? Nice. But I knew it was like,
what a funny thing, though, bro. Like, you're like,
blowing up canoes.
I'm blowing up canoes and shit. Like, you could never tell anybody that. Like, what happened? Oh, I blew up a canoe. We had a friend that like shot a cow at one point. It was just like, I don't know. I had to shoot the cow, had to get out of the way.
Like, we did that because they could attack and they go across the river, right, with the canoes. So they hadn't done it yet. So I was like, I'm gonna try to get these guys. So I blew up the canoes. Pilots were like, yeah, let's do it, dude. I got the footage and everything from them, right? And they sent it to me.
Of course.
But a couple hours later, I get called in front of the man on the radio. It's like, why did you authorize release of ordnance on empty canoes? I was like, because they're using these canoes to escape across the river. Why not? I mean, so, you want to send a patrol down there who might get hit by an IED or a mine or ambushed, and I could just blow this shit up with a fucking Cobra? And so me and the Army COC, the battle captain, both got our ass chewed, right? Because we both kind of had place and authorized in that. I just shook my head. I was like, man, we're kicking our own ass.
Yeah.
It was kind of embarrassing on my part because, I know these it was a Marine level, like a regimental level, who had command of this Army battalion, and I'm like, what are these Marines doing, man? Second guessing everything. This National Guard unit is doing. It was frustrating, and and you mentioned the book, and I wrote something about that in the book, and I actually had the comment out in the Marine Corps, the 37th comment in the Marine Corps, actually reviewed it because I did some work for him. He was like, that was kind of self-serving, Jason. I'm like, whatever. I was like, because I kind of bitched about. I was like, yeah, what are these career officers doing? Second guessing what these guys on the ground are doing that. So he came back. He's like, hey, good review, good book. But then on the side note, he's like, I just thought that comment was self-serving. I was like, all right, sir, thank you. What are you going to do? I mean, everybody's got their own opinion, but
sure.
That's what I'm saying, man. Blow shit. You're going to risk someone's life. When I could just blow it up with, 20 millimeter cannon fire or 2.75 inch rockets. I mean, why not?
Right.
It's not like you're shooting, a laser Maverick at it and spending a bunch of, $500,000 on it. A couple rockets, like whatever.
That's it. Boom, boom, boom. Shot it, and that was it. And They probably didn't need to shoot the rockets. They could just taken care of it with the 20 millimeter cannon fire. But I didn't care.
Yeah,
we weren't getting paid to bring this shit home, right?
Right.
Exactly. You got the only canoe kills out there. Guarantee it.
I want you to paint them on the side of your pin them on the side of your Humvee too. Like you just, there's a couple of stick figures, and then underneath like a couple canoes.
Not even metal canoes. These are wood dugout canoes.
Just the wood ones.
Circa, year 900.
Got a Pocahontas canoe up in this bitch. Like, what are we doing?
But they were doing that stuff because when I was in Abad, there was a river that would go right in front of the fob, and they would go upriver on tubes, believe it or not, and cross, and it was just you're doing all kinds of stuff like that.
And that always surprised me how leadership, Army, Marine Corps, Navy, whatever it was, wouldn't give these insurgents really the proper respect. And I'm saying I respect because these are fighters, but like, no, these guys are smart. They'll do whatever they'll change tactic techniques. You better be aware that they are smart. And they use diversionary tactics, and they do all kinds of crazy shit. And then you kind of get, on the Marine Corps side, I always noticed there was a lot of, arrogant motherfuckers who were like, they're just, insurgents. Like, these are smart men. They've been doing this for years. I mean, you better give them the respect they deserve.
I'm at a loss, and you're an educated man, so you'll probably know this, but there's with the English and the French, I believe there was some. I think it was the English that were it was the French that were coming in to invade on a small town, and they had just kind of had the same attitude, like, whatever, dude, it's just a bunch of peasants, you know. And then all of a sudden they got their asses handed to them. With some arrows, and that's where that whole this comes from on the English side of the house or the French side of the house. I don't butchered it, but like we that's a big problem. We underestimate other cultures and other communities, and it's we lull ourselves into a false sense of security.
It was frustrating too, because you're just like, these new units will come in, and as an attachment, you're like, okay, they ask you, what do you think about this? Well, like, this is what we've been seeing, sir. This is what we've been, and they come in, that's not happening to us. We're going to fucking do something different. Like, all right, man.
That's not what I learned in the book. The problem is that the insurgents don't read the books.
No,
know
exactly.
What I mean? They don't know what they're supposed to do. They
got their own plan.
Yeah, they didn't go to war college like you. I got some great input. It was real eye opening. I think this was actually in Helmand again. We lost. There were teams of folks that would fly around on helicopters, and their call sign was Aerosmith. I can say that now because they're done. But basically what they did, but it was like ARROW, and I was like, long story short, they would go around and they would try to hit the repeaters that the folks were using to communicate. So we were doing counter communications work with them. So they would fly up, they would literally get out, and they would have like, sometimes it was a loss, sometimes it was like, they just fly next to it and blow it up or whatever.
Blow it over.
Yeah, but we actually lost one of those. We actually had one of those aircraft crash and killed, I think, 4 or 5 people in the crash. However, as we're getting the debrief, we have an intel guy stand up and he's like, hey, listen, so this aircraft wasn't hit by this system, but they escaped, they defeated this system and ended up crashing because they were getting active fire. And basically what the insurgents had done, remember the Kinect, the old school Xbox? It was like the precursor to the Wii, where it would look at you and the thing would track your movement, it would move around. What they had done is that they used that would auto track, so it would look at an area and it would track, and then they used it would kick off. If you hit this digital tripwire, it would blow something up, but it was an airborne IED. It was meant to kill helicopters.
That's crazy.
I had a distinct feeling where I sat there and I kind of like sat back in my chair and I looked over at the intel guy and he goes, hey, LX, we killed all the stupid ones. The only people left are hardened fighters that actually know what they're doing. Yep. And these people, the funny thing about this too, and because I am a cynical person, the funny thing about that is like, you can't have it both ways. If they're a dirt farmer with a gun, with an AK, then why did it take us 20 years to lose? Okay. Yep. So that's your only other option there. What you're left with is, man, by the time that you got to Ramadi, by the time that you're working Operation Sand Deal, by the time that you're getting blown up in the middle of Iraq, and this is all in your book, Running Towards Gunfire, every single person that was there was ideologically motivated and had more combat than every single other person that you were working. Yeah. And that was the force that you were fighting against. These were the people that were making at that time too, with you guys with soft skin vehicles, and they were working the EFP IEDs, which were absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, we were seeing most of those EFPs mostly were Shia, and they were like Baghdad from what we were seeing back in Ramadi. We got briefed on them, and we had we had the bolt-on. In 0506, we had the bolt-on armor, so it was the aftermarket armor.
Right.
So,
Yep.
but the EFPs were we got briefed on those, and those were mostly coming from Baghdad. But yeah, I remember all those issues, over there, man. It was nuts, man. Dealing, that friction of dealing with the enemy, but you're also dealing with yourselves and your own command. That's like that causes problems.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah.
Well, let's hit the book. So you recently released a book, Running Towards Gunfire,
Right.
and it specifically, it highlights, kind of underscores, your brotherhood in Armadi, or not Armani, Ramadi.
Ramadi.
Wow. Armani.
Yes.
It's also called Al Ramadi.
Al Ramadi.
Yeah,
Jeez, dude. You know, before we started recording, we talked about the early mornings. Yeah. Sometimes because we record early, that's what happens. Go ahead, please save me.
No, yeah. So the book is about my Anglico team from when we got to Iraq and Ramadi in August of 05 until March of 06. It goes through that time period. We get there, what are we going through? What's it like? This is on the ground stuff. I'm not talking high level tactical. I'm talking about this is what the Marines do. This is what the Army does. This is what we were doing on the ground, and it centered around our team going through all that the problems and the issues and just the battles that we went through, from some funny issues to obviously not so funny, and the main thing was just as we grew and we started working with Task Force Dark Eagle, it was developed in Eastern Ramadi, and that's where my Anglico teams, a 4-man Anglico team, a 4-man Army Scout team, and a 4-man Army Sniper team. So 12-man team would go out into the Ramadi proper, we'd hide, we'd set up into a house. It was either abandoned or we'd hold the occupants in the house. And then another team would be out there kind of support by fire, supporting positions, but you weren't supposed to get compromised initially. So we get in there. Once we get compromised, then the enemy would attack. And so finally, we realized that they were reacting to us, because normally we're reacting to them, right? IEDs, sniper fire, attack. Maybe you do some ops, but mostly we're reacting to the enemy. So once we started doing these ops, and they found out we were in the neighborhoods, they would go crazy looking for us, and that's when they would make mistakes. They'd start digging IEDs. You'd see them walking with AKs, and the snipers were taking them out. And then when they'd find us and they start putting together a more substantial attack, that's when I'd bring in with the aircraft. So we were bringing in, Harriers, F-18s, Cobras, Huey gunships. Once we got compromised, and the target was big enough, and the unit, the 506 was the Army unit we were really working with in Eastern Ramadi, and this was the lineage from the old band of brothers, right? So the 506, and they're no longer airborne, they're air assault, 101st, but and so that's what we're working on. Those soldiers were great professionals, aggressive, kicking the door, let's make it happen. The officers, the battalion commander, the operations officer, they're like, yeah, make it happen. There was not a lot of these issues we were finding before of like, well, with the lawyer in the meeting or any of that stuff. This battalion was like, let's kick some shit, let's make some stuff happen, and we started really getting into fights and just bringing it out. And we started realized how good what we were really doing, because we noticed one day on one patrol, some guy gets attached to us from the DOD, right? Long hair, beard. He's walking around with a new Mark. What was that new machine gun? That 7.62 machine gun.
All new kit.
Yeah, I'm like,
the
I'm
Mark
like,
20.
So, yeah. And I'm like,
Yeah.
where are you from? Where are you with? Like, well, I'm with the DOD,
Virginia. Shut up.
I know. It was. I was like, all right, man. Look,
Same team, dude. I don't care.
I'm sure he's a cool dude, knows his shit. But
Yeah,
right.
Man, all of us been in and out of the city. We weren't impressed, day in and day out. But then he came out and realized, like, look, you guys are getting all these kills, and you're not getting killed, really, not yet. And then we wanted to figure out what was going on, and that's what we were doing. And this was, that's what we were doing, and we were bringing out. For a while, a few missions. Anglico was the main effort when it comes to some of these battalion ops, because they wanted to get us in position, get the enemy to come out, draw them out, and they were clearing us with close air support, and that's what we were doing. It was really working well until finally, towards the end. Well, I left, my team left, we rotated back to the world, and then they got. This is what we're talking about. The enemy learns, right? So they realized that once we went firm and they're attacking us into a defensive position, they were losing pretty good. The enemy realized that, look, this isn't working. What else can we do? So they started focusing on our exfil. They know where we're at. They might attack a little bit, but now they're waiting for us to exfil out of the building. that's when they can set up. So to counter that, what I would do is I'd have close air support. Hey, I want you to do, get your systems looking up and down, looking on rooftops, looking down alleys around us to see if anybody's hiding, as much as we could. And so that was working. But then I had already left. My team had left. And then there was, I think, a TAC P team with them, and the aircraft were refueling when they left, and they got attacked and killed a sniper, killed a QRF driver who was showing up, wounded a bunch of guys. The usual. I mean, one of the snipers who used to work with, his name was Joey B. He's got a plate armor. He has mags. A sniper, but then burst of enemy machine gun hit the chest, but he saved him. He had his plate and his all his magazines, but. So he lived, but the sniper next to him got killed. And there's other woundeds too. So the thing is long story short, that's what this whole deployment was starting to focus around, these types of operations, and what that, Marines throwing grenades, soldiers throwing grenades over the fence. I mean, that's urban battle, right? It's not like you're out in the field in hundreds of meters distance. This is next door, and that was a big eye opener there. It was that close in fighting is tough,
Yeah.
What was it like? You mentioned the 101st being professional, and you had, the officers, there was none of that lawyering up where they really just empowered the teams below them. How does that affect, how does having a leader like that, or how does that environment affect the teams on the ground?
Man, that's a good question. It positive, right? Say, hey, They trust us. They're not second guessing us. We don't feel like. I mean, you're obviously on a leash, right? But it was a tactical leash that they knew what we can and can't do. We would ask for more, and they'd give it to us. Hey, yeah, that sounds good. As long as we weren't being stupid, right? As long as it wasn't. Sure. And now initially we wanted to kind of let's get in a position, and then we'll displace, go to another position, and kind of maneuver on them as they're maneuvering on us, right? The enemy. They didn't want us to do that yet. They didn't want us to start moving around. That eventually happened later on, but initially it was like, hey, go firm. You got a support by fire position. You got another team out there that's working with you, and you're engaging, and that was it. But having that support from at the command level, I mean, you can't get it. You can't get any better than that, because you need that support, or else you don't want to do it. You're scared to make a mistake. Am I gonna get thrown in jail because they thought maybe I should have illegal shooting? I mean, man, it's all kind. I'd worry about getting killed, or my Marines getting killed. Then you also got to worry about these guys going to charge me. Was that a legit shot? Because back in Ramadi, then you're shooting people who are on a cell phone. Looking at, like, if you're exfilling and somebody's looking down the street and they got a cell phone, that's authorization to kill that guy. He just made a mistake. Yeah. But there's always this. What is that guy doing? He's sitting down there staring and pointing. Maybe I'm going to do escalation of force. Because I never trained to do frickin' warning shots. Marines don't do warning shots until I got to Iraq, and they're like, no, you need to do a warning shot. I'm like, what? That changed.
That's why, from a CAS perspective, when they started adding in terrain denial fires, you're like,
terrain denial fires.
What?
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh God, I don't.
I forgot about that.
And I don't think
you guys are going to have to explain it to the people that aren't out there.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I don't even know if they were doing that in 08, but
they were doing terrain denial in 05.
Yeah.
06.
So terrain denial for the listeners are where, if you have, folks approaching, or you're kind of worried that people are, start making their way. And this is them being kind of far out, not, I'm talking about several kilometers out. Then you would drop some ordnance in between you and them on some, whether it's farmland or just worthless desert, whatever it would be, just to try and go, hey, we have air support overhead. Don't come any closer. This is kind of a warning. So it's essentially a small arms, or a large version of a warning shot.
Yeah. When we did the terrain denial missions, it was mostly like, okay, let's plan one for this field, because I think maybe in the past there might have been some IDF shot from this area, but you had to clear that nobody was there. So you had to have aircraft overhead. It's like, is it empty? Because they don't want to kill some farmer that's tending to his field, and they drop it. Boom, that was it. So So when I talked about earlier, but with those Cobras that blow up those canoes, right? Because I was getting bitched out about that, but then I was like, 2 days earlier, I just cleared hot on a J dam that hit an empty field, because you wanted me to put together a target package. And here I actually killed something the enemy used. I blew something up the enemy used. Here,
now you're upset.
Nothing. I you're trying to chalk it up to, well, maybe there's somebody better, smarter than me that knows better than this is making sense, but it wasn't making sense at the time.
Spoiler alert, that's not true. And it's never somebody smarter than you. And it's always like the absurdity as you look back on it, right? And that's kind of what I want to talk about now. In 2007, you welcomed your daughter into the world. Scarlett was born. That had to change. I know having kids, I mean, I had my daughter in 2005. I had my son in 2007. I was in the pipeline for both of those. Just before assessment selection for my daughter, and then my son is actually in the pipeline. So I know it changed me as a man. I know that I had a completely different outlook on what it is that I was doing as far as warfare. And that kind of led to your exit in 2008. Is all of those things, all those stars kind of aligned, and you knew that it was time to step away. How did you go about making that decision?
I had talked about it. I knew that I was still in Iraq for my last deployment. So I did a total of 3. In my last deployment, I went over there in August of 06 and came back in 07. And so my daughter was born in, about a week after I came back, right? So we do 7 months deployments. My wife got pregnant before I left. My daughter was born shortly after I returned. So, but that's different. It was one thing leaving my wife, who's a grown woman, do her own thing, and then leaving your daughter. It was tough either way, but I was like, you know what, I'm done. I don't know if I go back there to, try to persuade a lawyer to drop a fucking bomb. I'm not worth it. I wasn't bad about the Marine Corps. Like, I'm getting out. I hate this. It was like, look, I did my time. I want to spend my time with my wife and my daughter now, and then build a family from there. And that's kind of how I justified it, because in my head, I was like, I kind of go about this in the book. It's like, look, nothing can ever compare to what happened that I did in Ramadi, at least to me, combat wise, like nothing can compare. And did I want to go in and sit behind a desk and go to symposiums as an officer? I didn't never really wanted to be a lifer. I wanted to serve my time and maybe see some cool shit. And I did. I fucking found that in Iraq. And, but getting out, I was like, I didn't see nothing else. I saw, like, I'm going to get out. It wasn't going to be fun anymore. Of course, I just saw deployments ahead of me, right? Afghanistan, Iraq, more. I just saw more deployments, and I was like, yeah, I'm done. That was it. I was fed up. I was done. I was tired. I just wanted to spend some time with my family, and that's how I did. Say goodbye. And even to this day, do I regret it? It's like, nah, I never wanted to be a colonel or a lieutenant colonel. I didn't really care about that. I wanted to just deploy. I wanted to deploy, and then I got what I asked for, and then that was done.
Right. So, well, then you had some time in between, and you decided to put the book together to really get at least a history out there. And the thing that I love about the whole book thing, people, I've probably evolved in a full 360 at this point, right? Like, I started off at one position. I've had about 10 different opinions on it. Just the fact that you get to say these people's names, the fact that we can always talk about people like your lieutenant, Lieutenant Shoulders, the fact that we can talk about, guys like Joey B getting hit, and unfortunately the man next to him lost his life. The fact that we are able to have those conversations and actually talk about it. I don't think enough people are writing books. One of the biggest regrets of my military career, and this is going to sound weird to the people that are listening to me out there, because they assume that I'm the most, narcissistic douchebag that they know, or at least that they know through the internet. One of my biggest regrets is that I did not take pictures. I was never a picture guy on deployments. I was never, I never took pictures of myself. I never organized team pics. Like, I would look at my guys would be like, oh, we want to do a cool team pic where we take our shirts off. We have stuff blown up in the background.
Yeah.
I'm
baseball hats on.
I'm like, you fucking dorks, quit it. No, absolutely.
Now you're like,
not.
I wish I would have got it. Yeah.
Man, I look back on it, I saw a couple memes, there's, of course, the internet is undefeated, but it's like, one chance to go back with the boys and take deployment pics. That's one of my biggest regrets. And, I think it's awesome that you wrote Running Towards Gunfire, because you get to talk about all these people. You get to, and I'm sure as you were going through the book, like, certain stories would jog your memory. You've had an amazing, like, getting blown up by an IED and having these, having these combat experiences where you'll lose stuff. So I imagine that, now that you've got some space from it 15, 16 years later at this point, how did writing the book affect your view of Ramadi? Did it make it better? Did it make it worse? Was it cathartic?
Yeah, it was cathartic. I've thought about it every day. Ever since I left Ramadi, I'm thinking about it every day, one way or the other, right? And that's just the reality that I live in, and that's okay. And even to a point, so much that my dog, I got a dog in 2014. I named him Ramadi. And why? I'm not sure. Because I told my wife, like, I want 2 kick-ass dogs, one named Fallujah, one Ramadi, right? But that's a mouthful. Fallujah. Right. Try yelling at Fallujah. Hey, Fallujah, because he's, doing steady. It's too much of a mouthful. So, right. But Ramadi, I did, and just because I said that name was always in my head, and I was like, I might as well turn it around, and make it a good thing. And now whenever I hear Ramadi, it's different. Now I'm thinking of my turd dog,
Right.
but as opposed to a turd city. But you know, Aaron and I forgot, I kind of went off on tangent there, so sorry. But
no, it's okay.
It was, it was surreal, and I was like I said, it was just like things that happened. You mentioned the book. I mean, there's guys getting killed or it's wounded, and what you're seeing and what you go through as a man at the time. I go through it, and all things I admitted, and like, look, I guess his leg got blown off, and later on I cried about it. Yeah, I'm a grown man. I did. Who the fuck cares? You don't want to see a young guy get his leg blown off and his whole life change, or somebody get killed. And it's okay. And one of my thing here, and you mentioned it, Aaron, is like, I tell everybody, look, write it down. Tell your story. Go on a podcast for your kids. Like, less than 1% of the U.S. population serves the military, and even less than that has seen combat. Mm-hmm. I was like, we need our stories to be out there. This whole silent professional thing, yeah, it works when you're in it and there's classified information. I get that. But when you're out, I think that hurts us. We need to tell our stories. We need to tell our stories. You need to tell people, I'm not saying lie. There's a lot of liars out there who overinflate their bullshit. But I'm not saying that. But I'm saying.
Sorry, I had
I heard it too,
man. You sneeze, bless you.
But yeah, you're right. A lot of people lie, and thing is and don't. I'm not saying doing that. Just be honest and say, this is what happened, and that's okay. And I tell everybody, tell your story, get it out there, because there's a lot of people who don't think you should, or whatever the case is. And one of the toughest part of this whole process of me wasn't writing it or getting it published. It was, okay, how are my fellow Marines that I served with, the guys that I was on the ground with, going to think about this? Am I being a braggart? Am I that I was legitimately didn't want to do this because of that. I was like, look, but then in the end, I was like, you know what? When I'm 75 years old and I'm not going to think about what they might have thought about me. It's get this book out there. But surprisingly, all these guys that you know how it is. When you're younger, you're really aggressive and talk shit. These guys have been nothing but, hey man, thanks for writing that book. It was great. Man, this is awesome. Guys I thought were going to be like, dude, what are you doing writing a book for? Shit like that. Your buddies. But these guys like, look, and especially my actual team I was with. I'm not going to say what they said, but later on they contacted me and they said some of the best things and a grown man could tell you that you worked with. And I'm glad I did it. And I'd do it again if I had better stories.
Well, that's good that you had that experience too, though, because, you're right. You don't know what you're going to get when you decide to write a book or, start a freaking YouTube podcast. Because you are going to catch some flack, whether it's from people that support it or people that are like, dude, you're just out to,
make
look at me,
or something like that.
Make the dollars and stuff like that. It's unfortunate, but I think you're going to hit that from everywhere. And funny enough, as I was the picture guy.
Yeah,
like
I was.
And I was always the person that was like, that people were like, dude, put the fucking camera down because like, dude, I just don't want to be on camera. And you're like,
yeah,
dude, I promise you, you're like, and every time, like I've got, I don't know, it's like 40,000 pictures or something like that.
He sends me pictures. He'd be like, hey, do you remember this? Like, we were in like Norway in like 2009 or something. I was like, what the fuck? Like, I looked at it. I was like, first of all, that's disgusting. Never show that picture to anybody. Second of all.
And you just posted it and tagged me on social media.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Like, I look like a complete fucking idiot. Like, thanks, man. This is not the persona that I want people to get out there.
Yeah.
Don't let them know that I'm an actual human. Just, I'm supposed to be the guy that they hate in the comment section. Like, we got a whole... You got to protect the brand on this one, Peaches. But yeah. And we've talked about it before. I think I credit. I think Nate Cox said this. I give him a lot of credit on this. He's a chief, a PJ, and a team leader, a mentor of mine. Nate said there's a difference between being a silent professional and a quiet professional. And I think to your point, like silent professionals, people that never talk about it, man, that's a whole generation did that in Vietnam. A whole generation.
And in World War II.
Exactly. They were completely silent about it. You can be, again, a quiet professional. You can handle things professionally and still tell your story. And, that whole rant was really just a setup to say, thanks for coming on and telling your story with us today, from me. Peaches is going to hit you with our question here that we always close with. But, man, I just want to say thanks for coming on and sharing your story and having, as cheesy as it sounds, the bravery and all of those things that you need to really put yourself out, the vulnerability as therapy word that I'm supposed to use. It's good, bad, or indifferent. Those stories are what's important. If we don't pour that experience in, if us GWAT nerds that are now, going on to do different stuff in our lives, if we don't tell these young lions and these young folks that are going into these career fields what it's like to be in combat, then how are they going to learn?
Yeah,
because
exactly.
We have a large experience gap that is ever widening right now.
Every day.
Every single day, that experience gap is widening, and it falls on us, the veterans, the GWAT, the older dudes, the guys that saw those things. It's on us to pour that experience in, to give them that tacit knowledge. Tacit knowledge is knowledge gained by experience and actually doing things. And it's important for us to give that to them. Otherwise, it's going to, like all oral history, it'll just fade away and it won't be a thing.
Yep. If you don't mind, Aaron, can I do a shameless plug on my book?
No, we got all the time. Plug it out, bro.
This is the book. It's called Running Towards Gunfire, Courage and Brotherhood in Ramadi. And it came out August 12th. And you can buy it on Amazon.com, or you can go to my website, which is Jason-Angell with 2 L's.com, and you can pick it up there. Either way, it's a good book. It's a lot of good stories. And I'm just glad to have it out there with you, and I appreciate your support, guys.
Of course. And do you have any social media or anything like that?
No, I do. Yeah. So you can contact me on like Facebook or Instagram with Running Towards Gunfire. At Running Towards Gunfire. You can look me up there. Once again, my name is Jason Angell, and so I'm on there as well as my personal account on Facebook. But so I'm good. Any questions about it? I'm more than happy. It was a great book to write, and it's great even now. I went through over a decade and a half really not talking to other veterans, except for a couple guys that I knew very close. So it's nice getting out there talking to other veterans on the line, especially you guys, and just other GWATers. Bad decision makers, the whole deal.
Yeah. No, questionable decision making. You're in the right place here, bud.
with bad decision making,
questionable decision making and hilarious hijinks, death-defying antics. Yeah, that was pretty much our entire career, buddy.
Well, so our demographic is anywhere between 17-year-olds and about 28-year-olds, rapidly approaching 30-year-olds now, because a lot of older folks are I say older, not old, just older folks are joining. So what would be a piece of advice that you would want to leave them with?
Look, push it to the limit. A lot of times you get in there that first 6-7 months of when you join the military, I think you kind of go through a little bit of a change, right? But push it, be the best you can, man. It was and don't let some of those negative ears that you'll see in units bring you down. Get away from those guys or girls and push it. Be the best you can. I always wanted to be the best that was available to me. So I was always trying and pushing myself to the limits that I could. And that's even my son, he's interested in joining the Marine Corps. I'm like, look, do the best you can. If you want to do that, do it. Don't give up, and there's a lot more to that, obviously, right? And you're tired and cold and hungry. Mm-hmm. But look, you control your future. It's all mental.
Yep, absolutely. That was solid. All right. Well, Jason, appreciate you coming on. Everybody, make sure you check out the book, Running Towards Gunfire, Courage and Brotherhood in Ramadi. Not Armani, Ramadi.
Ramadi, that's it.
I'm waking up a little bit now.
I get it.
You're getting it.
So, all right. And please, everybody out there, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave us a review, check out the site, onesready.com, buy yourself a piece of merch, and we are out here. Lodo.
Thanks, Jason.
It's no problem, guys.